They blazed brightly on stage, but the truth after the final curtain fell was far more haunting than any melody they ever sang. Behind the standing ovations, the flashing lights, and the flawless performances, there existed a world the public was never meant to see. A world where exhaustion hid behind smiles, where painkillers replaced rest, and where autopsy rooms revealed everything fame tried to conceal. These legends were worshipped as untouchable, yet their bodies told a different story, one of pressure, quiet suffering, and battles fought in silence. Fame gave them glory, but it never protected them from pain. And as we uncover the truth written in medical files, toxicology reports, and whispered rumors, one question echoes louder than any applause. Was the price of greatness simply too high? Before we dive into these 10 shocking autopsy secrets, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the truths buried behind the music. Prince, the purple legend brought down by a silent dose. There are nights when the music still echoes across empty stages, and Prince's name lingers in the cold halls of the hospital where his final truth was revealed. His autopsy uncovered fentanyl levels so extreme, 67.8 micrograms per liter of blood, 450 micrograms per kilogram of liver, that even seasoned doctors paused in disbelief. How could a man who fought record labels for control over his art lose control over the medication coursing through his veins? For years, Prince battled unbearable hip pain from decades of electrifying performances. He switched doctors, tried to quit medications, and searched desperately for relief. Yet behind the iconic purple glow, his pockets often held a tangle of white pills, silent symbols of a suffering the world never saw. In an industry that demands perfection, legends aren't allowed to look weak. Prince's death became more than a tragedy, it became a mirror reflecting a system that watched him fall but never asked why. Rick James, the wild icon overwhelmed by a deadly cocktail. The music was still playing, the smoke still swirling, but the autopsy report on Rick James told a story louder than any funk riff he ever created. His blood carried a shocking cocktail of substances: alprazolam, diazepam, bupropion, hydrocodone, methamphetamine, cocaine, each one mild alone, but together forming a storm his weakened heart could no longer endure. Fans imagined party culture, but insiders knew the truth. Rick wasn't chasing thrills anymore. He was trying to numb decades of nonstop pain, chronic illness, and the physical wear of life on stage. The contradiction was brutal. A man famous for explosive energy was slowly suffocated by the very pills meant to keep him moving. His death exposed the dangerous reality of an industry where medication becomes routine, exhaustion becomes normal, and no one stops to ask, is he okay? Rick James didn't fall from one fatal blow. He faded under the weight of too many silent doses. Whitney Houston, a golden voice lost in a room full of quiet pain. The bathroom light cast a pale glow over a scene no one wanted to imagine. Whitney Houston, the voice of a generation, surrounded by fragments of a life pushed far beyond its limits. The autopsy listed familiar items: Xanax, Flexeril, alcohol, traces of cocaine, but it was the small scratches on her forehead and nose that stirred the deepest questions. No struggle, no foul play, just signs of a woman fighting exhaustion, pressure, and loneliness in her own way. Years of relentless touring, public scrutiny, and personal turmoil had drained her more than any audience ever realized. Every pill, every sip, every moment alone was an attempt to quiet the storm she carried inside. Her death wasn't dramatic, it was painfully still. And that stillness revealed a devastating truth. Even legends can become isolated in the very spotlight that made them shine. Whitney's final moments forced the world to confront what fame had taken long before her heart stopped. Marvin Gaye, a gunshot old bruises, and the questions no autopsy could answer. The hallway had barely quieted from an argument when a gunshot ended Marvin Gaye's life, yet the autopsy answered only part of the tragedy. Officially, the cause was a gunshot wound, but whispers from neighbors, early reporters, and those close to him added darker layers: old bruises, unexplained scratches, signs of long-standing conflict that were never fully acknowledged. Marvin's health had already been unraveling under pressure: family tension, financial struggles, sleepless nights, and the emotional weight of a stalled career. The contrast was heartbreaking. The man who asked the world, "What's going on?" lived his final days surrounded by chaos he could not escape. His death became a haunting puzzle. What really happened before the shot? Did anyone see the signs? Why were certain details never clarified? The autopsy closed a case, but it never closed the questions. Marvin Gaye's voice lives on, but so does the mystery of a legend lost too soon. Teddy Pendergrass, the voice trapped in a silence no autopsy could break. The stage lights may have dimmed, but the scars on Teddy Pendergrass's body still burn brightly in the memories of fans who adored him. After the 1982 accident that left him paralyzed, Teddy lived nearly 3 decades carrying pain far deeper than the public ever understood. When he passed in 2010, whispers spread that his private medical files revealed complications far worse than the polished public reports suggested: long-term infections, internal deterioration, and suffering he endured quietly. What made Teddy's story tragic wasn't just the physical pain, but the silence surrounding it. No full autopsy was ever released, leaving fans to piece together fragments from colleagues and insiders. Why was the truth softened? To protect his image? To avoid uncomfortable questions about medical care and neglect? Teddy became a symbol of a heartbreaking divide: legendary glory on stage and unspoken torment backstage. His death left behind not only sorrow, but a haunting absence of answers. Etta James, a cocktail of painkillers and a legacy caught in rumor. Etta James spent her life singing fire into every note, but in her final days, that fire was overshadowed by suspicion. When reports surfaced that her autopsy revealed high levels of potent painkillers, the public was torn. Was it compassionate care or dangerous excess? Battling leukemia and dementia, Etta faced unbearable pain, and medication became her refuge. Yet leaked comments hinted that the dosages were far above normal, igniting rumors of negligence or intent. Her family insisted the drugs were meant to comfort her, not harm her, but the whispers wouldn't stop. Fans wanted to believe she passed peacefully, yet the ambiguity turned grief into debate. The tragedy wasn't the medication, it was how the world viewed it. Etta James, once celebrated for defiance and strength, became the subject of questions no one could answer. Her final chapter became a mirror reflecting society's fear, judgment, and the fragile line between healing and harm. Luther Vandross, the sweetest voice, the heart that hid the heaviest secret. Luther Vandross, beloved for melodies that made the world believe in love, left behind a mystery that still stirs unease. Officially, he died from complications after a stroke, but soon after, rumors surfaced suggesting his autopsy revealed a heart far more damaged than the public was told, a heart worn down by years of industry pressure, extreme dieting, and the relentless pursuit of perfection. Luther lived on a treadmill of expectations: flawless vocals, polished image, constant touring. Behind the elegance of his voice was a man carrying quiet burdens, emotional strain, and physical consequences that went largely unseen. His family chose silence, perhaps to protect his dignity, but that silence left a void. Were the rumors true? Was his heart failing long before the stroke? Fans were left suspended between respect and unanswered questions. Luther sang about healing, yet his death revealed a truth his music never could:
the cost of carrying the world's love on one fragile heart. James Brown, the godfather of soul, silenced by secrets no file would reveal. James Brown lived loudly, fiercely, unapologetically, yet his death was swallowed by an unsettling quiet. When he passed in 2006, fans expected answers. Instead, they were met with sealed files, missing details, and whispers of medical mismanagement. Rumors spread that his autopsy showed abnormalities in his circulatory system and traces of pneumonia medication, but the full report never surfaced. Those close to him claimed his treatment changed erratically in his final days. Strong drugs, sudden decisions, and protocols no one explained. The contradictions were haunting. How could a global icon not receive transparency in his final hours? Why did an autopsy meant to clarify instead deepen the mystery? Fans felt betrayed, left with half-truths about a man who devoted his life to breaking boundaries. James Brown, who once shouted, "Say it loud," on stage, was ultimately buried under the loudest silence of all, the silence of a story the world was never allowed to hear.
Gerald Levert, the people's voice, lost to a deadly mix hiding in plain sight. The knock on the hospital door was soft, but the news hit like a storm. Gerald Levert was gone. His autopsy didn't list a single fatal substance, just a mixture of prescription meds that were harmless alone, but deadly together. Vicodin, Percocet, Darvocet, Xanax, cough suppressants, each meant to relieve pain, help him sleep, or keep him performing. But years of lung inflammation, fatigue, and the pressure to uphold his family's musical legacy made his body vulnerable. Gerald wasn't chasing highs, he was trying to survive the grind. Long studio sessions, demanding tours, and the emotional weight of expectations pushed him deeper into dependency, not on drugs for pleasure, but on drugs for endurance. His death sparked painful questions. Why didn't anyone notice? How did routine medications become fatal? It wasn't a dramatic overdose. It was a slow accumulation of invisible burdens. Gerald Levert died not from recklessness, but from exhaustion masked by pills. Aaliyah, the angel of R&B, taken by a chain of preventable failures. The engine roared one last time beneath a bohemian sky, carrying Aaliyah toward a future she would never reach. Her autopsy revealed burns, severe trauma, and a heart too weak to withstand the shock of the crash. But the deeper tragedy lay in the choices that led her onto that plane. It was overloaded by nearly 800 pounds. The pilot was uncertified and later found with alcohol and cocaine in his system. Witnesses said Aaliyah hesitated, sensing the danger, but the pressure to return to New York pushed the decision forward. This wasn't just a crash, it was a chain of preventable failures. Rushed schedules, ignored warnings, and industry urgency over safety. Aaliyah, only 22, became the victim of negligence disguised as efficiency. Her death shattered fans not only because she was young, but because it didn't have to happen. Aaliyah's story remains a painful reminder. Sometimes the brightest stars fall not from destiny, but from decisions that should never have been made. Music can take people to emotional heights, but behind those soaring notes often lies a truth far heavier than fame ever shows. These legends gave us brilliance, joy, and unforgettable melodies, yet their autopsy reports revealed the exhaustion, pressure, and hidden battles they carried alone. Their stories remind us that greatness is never without cost, and that the artists we admire are human long before they become icons. The unanswered questions, sealed files, and lingering mysteries don't diminish their legacies. They deepen them, showing just how much they endured to give the world their gift. As we honor their music, let's also honor their humanity. Let's remember them with empathy, not judgment, with awareness, not assumptions, and let their stories be a reminder that no spotlight is bright enough to erase pain. If this touched you, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more untold stories waiting to be uncovered. Goodbye, and see you in the next.